All right, guys, we want to welcome Miha to the show today. Miha, thanks for being here.
Well, hi, Chris.
Hello.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so excited to be talking with you today, especially so if you're listening to this in the future, we've made it through the coronavirus and everything that entailed. So this is going to be a really great show to help people who might be having some negative effects because of that or have had negative effects because of that or just in anything in general. So Miha has a great story of coming out of those kind of ashes in business and being able to rebuild back in the 2008-2009 recession, I believe. So Miha, I would love to hear your story and just kind of what you've went through and how you've gone through something like this already.
Okay, I'll give you the shorter version, and then you feel free to dive into whatever you want.
For sure.
I dropped out of high school when I was 17, and I started my entrepreneurial journey with 18 years old.
Wow.
By 2008, I created several successful businesses. They all went past 7, 8, multiple 8 figures. But the thing was that I had zero solid foundations in those businesses, and that's where I feel the whole story can very much connect with what's happening right now, because most entrepreneurs today really don't have those solid foundations. They're just focused on sales, marketing, getting the revenue in. But that's not enough in times of crisis. And the same thing happened to me. Basically, my businesses were like that first house from the Three Little Pigs story, made out of straw. And then, when that crisis blew in, it all fell apart. And it all fell apart basically in a single day. One of the companies was in real estate. All others were co-signing for that loan. I was co-signing for a whole lot of things, and one thing led to another. Prices of real estate dropped. The bank wanted out. It took the guarantees from everything else. I wasn't able to, I didn't have any cash flow to maintain other businesses, so I ended up owing money to employees, taxes, suppliers, you name it. And I ended up personally $5 million in personal debt.
Wow.
And in Europe, the laws are a little bit stricter when it comes to personal bankruptcy. So it's not an easy thing to do. I wasn't able to do it at all due to regulation, because I was a business owner, because I wasn't able to pay employees. Of course, I wasn't when everything happened in a single day. And because of that, I wasn't allowed to do personal bankruptcy. So I'm gonna fast forward a little bit. Like, this was a few months of complete hell.
Wow.
Phone calls every day, threats. Not just the ones saying, "Oh, we're gonna sue you," more like, "We're gonna do stuff to you." Threats like that, depression, anxiety, darkness, stress. All of it. Just what a lot of people are feeling right now as well. And the fear and so on. And also, a lot of living in denial, in a way where, admitting like, that I was the cause of those problems. It was so easy back then to blame it on outside factors. Right now, it's easy to say, well, it's Corona's fault.
Right.
And of course, there's part of it that's Corona's fault. But the thing is, when you say something like that, you put yourself in a passive state of mind. You can't do anything until this Corona thing is over. And then, after the Corona thing, it will be the economy thing, because, we already see so many people being unemployed, and there's a lot of revenue that's missed that we can't recover. Events being canceled, you can't recover that. The transportation's not being done, like flying tickets and so on. That doesn't mean that when Corona is over, we will fly 4 times as much as we did before the corona.
Right.
So,
Yep.
there will be an impact that's unrecoverable. And of course, we are in it for a bit longer than just, the next few weeks. So it's easy to blame it on that. But then, what can I do? But when you say, okay, it's up to me to do something, so shift your focus, it's very important to focus on what you can do. And there's plenty that anybody can do. You can pivot a little bit, you can pivot a lot, you can start a new business. You can, if you have an audience, since you are an entrepreneur, you have an audience of your clients, past clients, talk to them, see how their priorities have changed, how their desires have changed, and maybe you can provide them with something else. So there's so much that we can do, and so much that we can do when it comes to just laying down solid foundations. In this time, it's a good time because we're at home. We have a lot of time. We can work on processes, KPIs, benchmarking, the boring stuff that never gets done.
Right.
Things like that will enable us a better future later on. So back to the story. A few months after that call with the bank, I was basically a few days away from my apartment being taken away from me as well. I was on the balcony, evening, smoking a cigarette, and I just climbed on the other side of the fence. And I remember holding myself with like one hand and being already inclined over the edge. And I was looking down, and as I was looking down, I was thinking, am I going to do this right or not? Because I was just on a 5th floor. If you're on 20th floor, no brainer, you jump, you die. On the 5th floor, miracles can happen, and I can just end up on a wheelchair. And that would not solve the nuclear reaction and the overload in my head. But at that moment, I don't know how to really explain it. It was almost like, a split of personality for a moment. Two Mihas, and one Miha yelling at the other Miha. And I used some pretty juicy language, so I'm not going to repeat that here. But it was really, like, you failed at this, you made a mistake here, you made bad decisions. And for the first time, I took ownership. It wasn't the crisis. It was me making bad choices, bad mistakes, not being mindful about good cash flow, not being mindful about this, that, asset protection, tax protection, and so on and so on, that eventually led to what happened to me. So the aha moment actually was a bit later, after the yelling, when I realized, oh shit, you know what? If I was able to accumulate and do all of that, have 4 successful businesses, my net worth was 15 million and so on. If I was able to do that with all those mistakes, I can do bigger, I can do better if I change and make better decisions. And that was for after a long time of huge darkness, a little ray of light that was worth fighting for. So I climbed back in and I started the fight. And, I have to point out here or emphasize this because people think sometimes, oh, you had the aha moment and now it was just upwards. It wasn't, it was 3.5 years of everyday struggle and fight with old habits, old Miha, new habits, new Miha, and all of that. It was a fight. It was a very, very difficult, hard fight. And then if I fast forward again, 2014, February, I started a new startup with all the lessons from, learned from those previous things, with all the new knowledge, new experience, new ideas, new ways of how to do stuff. It was an energy efficiency startup. And I was able to scale it to multiple 8 figures in the first year, multiple 9 figures next year. And then I had the successful Fortune 100 exit. I was able to walk away on day one. I was not needed because of the systems in place, because of, everything in place. And yeah, went on a long vacation, got bored after 3 days, started looking for local meetups to hang out with fellow entrepreneurs. You go there, they ask you who you are, introduce yourself. I shared a little bit of my story. Entrepreneurs quickly jumped and started asking me questions, and asking me to be advisor, mentor, this, that. And slowly, I just fell into the whole coaching business. And when I was thinking with a friend of mine how to name the whole thing, after a few beers, he said, well, you always say how important it is to have healthy relationship with failure, how solid foundations are so important, and failure is big part of those foundations. Every story you starts with you failing at something.
Yep.
He said, yeah, well, you're the fail coach. And so we registered that, and I never looked back. And so, yes, today I'm known as the fail coach.
Wow. What a story. Wow. That is awesome. Thank you for sharing all that. And thank you for sharing that with so many people and being able to help so many people through failures and through hard times. That's really an awesome kind of thing to be known for sure. Yeah, no problem. But I want to go back. You mentioned a big reason that your first businesses in 2008 kind of didn't make it through that recession was because none of them had a solid foundation. So yes. I guess what does a solid foundation look like for people who are building a business or
sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, the thing back then was, before the whole the crash, we had a few years of very good macroeconomic situation. And like just look at 2019, real estate rising, shares rising, people spending money like crazy. Like there's nothing. Wall Street and all of those fancy banks saying there's no chance of any recession in 2020 and so on. And again, nobody was expecting, like back then, nobody was expecting what will happen.
Right.
That's kind of like the common denominator, like we never expect things. And when the times are good, imagine, like building a business is like building a house. So if it's nice, sunny, no earthquakes, no water, no nothing, you don't even maybe need foundations. You can just put your house on the floor, on the ground, and it will stay there, You put the foundations for, flooding and this and that. And so no foundations means, you're good at marketing, you're good at sales, you somehow manage to deliver stuff, and that's it. And you can grow. You can go to 7-8 figures just with that, But the thing is, when crisis came, foundations. What are the foundations? Well, the number one foundation is you, the entrepreneur. You need to have, nobody was born the perfect entrepreneur. We all have some skills. We lack some skills. Things that are really important right now: mindfulness. To be present, so that you don't react on autopilot, because our autopilot is not done for these difficult situations. You need emotional intelligence, because it's so easy to give in to fear, but you need to stay strong. You need to stay grounded. Right now, you need to be more on the logical side than on the emotional. Look at number, test, fail, look at numbers. Make decisions, fast decisions sometimes, I mean, honestly, Donald Trump can have a conference today, say, he can say something different, and something else can happen. So we need to be responsive. We need to look what's happening, but not from a consumer point of view, consumer of the information, and going into fear and negative. You need to just look at it logically and see, and then reflect on what we've heard, gather information from a few different sources, and then make decisions. And we have to make them fast.
Yeah, I think that's key. I think making fast decisions, but also thinking, because so many times people don't really think. They just follow the masses and that causes the chaos, the
Yeah.
foundations to crumble. And so, yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's huge.
Yeah. So just, another few foundations,
Yeah.
systems,
Mm,
processes, KPIs, following the numbers, benchmarking, business intelligence, brand story is even more important right now. Who we are, what do we stand for, what are we here for? Company culture. If you don't create one, it will create itself by itself,
mm-hmm.
and it might not be what you want. A solid HR process in place, internal knowledge base, onboarding of clients, of employees, and so on. I mean, different things apply at different stages.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
if you're a six-figure business, you don't need an HR structure with, you and a few VAs and freelancers.
Right.
But when you are a 7-8-figure business with, some employees and so on, you need to have a little bit done, depending how big your organization is. That's how strong your HR foundations need to be in place. But all of those things kind of encompass those foundations. And I've probably missed a few as well.
No, but that's good. I think that's a lot of good things. And again, it's just going back to thinking. And like the quote says, if you fail to prepare, you're preparing to fail. And so just preparing and being ready for these kind of situations, because history repeats itself. So if we're not studying history, if we don't see the trends and the up and downs, and we don't prepare for things like this, things like recessions and
Chris, when I was working with my clients in the past few years, I always told everybody, next thing might be just around the corner. Now, we don't know what it might be. Nobody knows whether it will be 2019, 2020, 2021, maybe even 2023. What we know from the history is that roughly every 10 to 12 years, something happens, something that disturbs the market. So we don't know what it will be, but we need to have that in mind, and we need to be constantly prepared. One of the things that I do with my clients, no matter how big they are, is we brainstorm on possible failures that can happen in their business, inside, outside, and we start making plans if that happens. And if it doesn't, thank God. If it does, I'm prepared.
We have to think. We just have to, again, history repeats itself. So we just have to prepare. And I like that, brainstorming what could possibly go wrong by looking at your structure, looking at your environment, and even like external, outside of that, worldly things to see what's going to be going on. But you said a point earlier, like if something does happen in a negative sense with our business, in our lives, in our careers, whatever it may be, not getting into a passive state of mind, having no ownership, but reverse that, taking ownership, and fixing the problem. Like I heard a story, it could have been Tylenol, it could have been another drug company, but many years back, they had an issue where I think like 6 people died from taking their pill, and like the top guy took ownership and said, we messed up, we're going to fix this. And they lost. They took all the pills off the shelf, and which was like $100 million loss that the company took, but he took the ownership. Even though it might have been in their manufacturing or distribution, whatever it might have been, he took the ownership of the whole thing because he was at the top, and he fixed it, made a quick decision to fix it. And I mean, they're still in business, and many people probably don't even know, but just like that, I thought that was a brilliant point about we have to take ownership.
Yeah, we certainly do. And we need to have that active approach. And taking ownership gives a signal to our brain, okay, go do something, brainstorm, think of something. And then we can actually do something about it. Because, a lot of people nowadays come to me as the fail coach. And I sometimes have a feeling that they almost expect as if I have the magic wand, and they will tell me what their problems are, and I'll always have simple solutions for them. I don't always have simple solutions. Sometimes, I have to tell them, like, you know what, Right now, if you look at all the information out there, some people say this will be over in a few weeks, few months, but there's plenty of scientists and medical research people and economists saying that maybe this will be 18 to 24 months. Now, me as the business owner, I can't go with, counting on odds being in my favor.
Right.
I have to go with, like, I personally look at it, maybe it will be 3 years. And then if it happens sooner, great, but and so if we look on in that regard, somebody in tourist industry, for example, right now, they need to pivot. They need to completely pivot,
Yep.
So sometimes I have to give them the very bad news. Sometimes it's something little that they can do. Sometimes you just need to make a shift in your communication strategy, and your product and your service can be completely used in the same way. Just your communication strategy needs to be a bit different. And sometimes you need to make very hard decisions. Let everybody go, close down the shop, start something new. But better to do it right now than to wait another few months, and then you end up in a huge debt, and then it's so much harder to start something. So sometimes there is no magic wand, and waiting and counting on governments that they will do something. I mean, when have politicians done anything for
I understand. I'm with you on that. And I think it kind of goes back to having like an optimistic realism about situations. Like, be open-minded, be positive about it, but be realistic. Like, okay, this is happening. This could happen. It's going to get better. But there's always things that can happen in between now and it getting better. And so, just having that optimistic realism about it.
And also, Chris, I can't give specific examples because of the NDAs that I have signed with my clients. But there is one client, for example, where we were able to take what they already have, repackage the whole thing, and offer that to a completely different market that is ready to pay. But the market that they were serving now was completely dying out. But we were, so it's also a lot about thinking about leverages. And one of the leverages is, what do I already have that I can maybe repackage, add a little bit to it, change a few things, and maybe offer that same thing or mostly similar thing to a completely different market that might have the need and might have the funds to. With another client, we actually were able to figure out how some of the things that they've done in the past for completely different industries can now actually be used in fighting over the corona thing or in helping fight the corona thing. And they already offered that to a few governments and are now waiting for response to get back. And they were in a completely non-health related industry, but some of the things in their process can be used for some of the things, when it comes to corona. So we need to sit down and, when you're emotional, you can't come up with those solutions. You can't think straight. That's why I'm saying, the healthy relationship with failure and the healthy mindset right now is a more logical one. Because emotions, they cloud our vision.
Yeah, that's why it's like so important to just say like even keel and not let the bad or the good raise our emotions or lower them to the extremes, because I mean, it's a roller coaster ride we're on. It can go up and down. Life can go up and down. So if we can stay level, we're going to, I think, come out a lot better at the end. And you talked about shifting your mindset on what you can do. So what could people do if they're in a rough situation right now to shift that mindset to help them kind of get on the right track out of this hardship?
Well, first they need to really get rid of the emotional part. That's what's stopping them from, being able to sit down and look at things logically, put some things on the piece of paper, do a bit mind mapping, maybe a little SWOT analysis, look at, okay, so what are the resources that we do have, and so on. But first you need to take the emotions away. And the best way that I've seen you can do that is by practicing mindfulness. Even some mindful meditation can be a good thing. For me, walking outside with my doggies next to some water without my phone and anything with me is a very good practice to be present in the moment. I mean, with 4 crazy dogs, you have to be present,
Yeah,
you always have to look around. So there's no time for me to think about anything, but that, calms down your overheated, overthinking head. And then you can start being, logical and open to thinking about possibilities and solutions and so on. Or, a very good thing maybe would also be, find a mastermind where you have like-minded people, maybe and exchange ideas, maybe find a mentor, find a coach, somebody, who's been there, who knows how to get on the other side, who can, provide you the additional brainstorming that maybe you can't see because you're so involved in the current situation. So somebody who can be outside of the box, because sometimes we can't do that for ourselves. Or, I mean, somebody who hasn't practiced mindfulness and emotional intelligence in the past, that's not something you can, just read a book and learn tomorrow you do it. It takes practice. So if you didn't practice that before, then find somebody who can, be from the outside, have a look. If you can't afford that, just create a mastermind of your own. For sure, a few entrepreneurs, like everybody's at home. Just start a Zoom call or a Skype call or whatever, and jump on a call. Just see, maybe somebody else has some other ideas that can help you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's key. And so the first trait of pencil leadership is being humble enough to seek counsel, seek wisdom from people who are more experienced or have been there, or just from other people from a different perspective. So I think, that you hit it right on the head there, and of how important that is. And especially with what we're going through right now, so many people being laid off or losing their jobs or decrease in salary, and unknowing of what the future holds. And so getting positive, like-minded people around them.
I know. And it's very hard. Without, all of that practice, it's very hard to see pluses when this is happening to you.
Right.
It's so easy to, look back and see, oh yeah, that was good for this or that. But trust me, you don't know me, but like from somebody who went through that shit already once in a very, very hard way, that, like one door closes, one door opens. Maybe you being laid off is a good thing, because maybe you can start something that you were postponing for so long, and that something, instead of your job giving you a paycheck, can actually provide you with freedom later on. So but of course it's very hard to see something like that as you're going through it. That's why I guess in this crazy, turbulent, difficult times, it's even more important to reach out and find some help, somebody who is not you, who is not involved in your emotional state right now, who can, push you maybe in some other directions. And it can be a great opportunity to create something from scratch, something new. As much as you said, companies going bankrupt, people losing jobs and so on, but there's so many new opportunities that, like e-learning was never so popular as it is right now. And online businesses and so on. So there's every single time when there's something like this happens, as much as there are difficulties in traditional things that we were used to, things that were comfortable, but on the other hand, you have always plenty of opportunities that are emerging, things that maybe never existed before or were, underrepresented. It's
Right.
only you. Where will you focus? Will you focus on, oh shit, I lost my job? Or will you focus on, okay, so
Yep.
I'm at home, I have plenty of time, the time will pass anyway, so let's just use it for the best I can, and let's see, maybe I can actually do something, create something that will turn out to be the next best thing for me on the long term.
Yep. Yeah, and it's crazy. So it's like what we focus on, that's where our mind goes to. So if we're focused on the negative, our mind's going to go negative, and then our actions are going to just kind of follow into negative situations because we're going to bring those about by just focusing on those instead of
Yes.
focusing on what could be, what's coming, what's the positive stuff in the situation. It really changes the whole outcome, the whole journey. Not that it makes it easier, not that it takes all the hardship away, but if we can focus on something positive every day, even if it's the smallest thing, that'll get us through, and then we can start focusing on the positive to come, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think these are some great things that our audience can really, man, it's just so prevalent right now. I mean, it's crazy how, so we were supposed to talk a couple weeks ago, I think, or a month ago. I can't remember now, but
I
schedules,
think like
conflicts
a
happen.
month or something
Yeah.
ago. Yeah.
Yeah, so conflict came up. We had to reschedule, thankfully, but it so happened that we rescheduled just as this is all kind of unfolding around the world. And with your experience, I don't believe in coincidences. So I think this happened at the opportune time because a lot of people are going to need to hear this. And I appreciate you coming on and being flexible with your time,
Thank you.
Miha. So yeah, no problem. Before we wrap things up, though, I do like to ask my guests a couple questions, but I'm going to stick with one because you've answered a lot of the others already. So after everything is said and done on Earth here for you, what is one positive mark that you want people to remember you by?
Can I have two?
Sure.
Yeah, I have these two big purposes, big whys that are driving me. And one of them is through that journey of mine that I was describing earlier,
Yeah.
I had a very big help in the middle of that journey by adopting a dog, Happy. And he was my true angel through those difficult times. And so one thing is I'm creating a nonprofit to help even more animals, stray animals, and so on. So that's
Wow.
one thing for the work that I'm going to do, that I'm already doing, and that I'm about to do on a larger scale with animals.
That's
and
awesome.
The second one is Failures Anonymous, because I almost died because of my past failures. And I've heard with so many stories of people who didn't make it. I do believe that failure is a huge taboo unnecessarily, because failure in its essence, it's the best learning and growing opportunity that we can have.
Yeah.
And I want to turn that around. And so I want to create this organization. It's already started a little bit, Failures Anonymous, very similar to Alcoholics Anonymous,
Yeah.
small groups throughout the world. So yeah, to be the person who will be at least the start of that momentum to break the taboo called failure.
That's awesome. I love that. So on both of those, my wife and I, we foster dogs through shelters so they don't have to be put down or euthanized. And so we try to help and do our part in that. And I have bigger goals with animals and helping as well.
Perfect.
I think that's so cool.
Amazing.
Connected with that. And then I love the Failures Anonymous thing. That's going to be that it's so needed because so many times people think of failure as negative. But I have a mentor who always says that we win or we learn. There's no failure. And
Yeah.
so I think it's cool that you're going to start that and the people's lives that you're going to change literally and save because you're going to be offering this to people. So I love those. I think those are some great marks to leave on the world for sure.
Thanks.
And Miha, again, thank you so much for taking the time to share with us and to help us kind of in this time that we're going through to learn and to be able to grow. So thank you.
Sure. Chris, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure being your guest. And I do hope that your audience will get some value out of this interview. Take care.
Absolutely. You too. Thank you.